Hello everyone, welcome to the Nullified Take channel where we've got the TNT takes for you on Australian Survivor Heroes versus Villains. That's right, it's bonus content time, everybody. I thought about it this week. A lot of people have been asking me to do a power ranking, to give my thoughts in regards to the tier ranking. I've been getting comments on some of those older videos that I did, so I thought, why not do a live? Why not get some people in on it and get your opinions and takes as well? Now, obviously, doing this live is quite new for me because normally I have Mucky or I have a Kahuna or any of the other people that I normally do these types of things with. But I think this is going to be a little bit more intimate. It's going to be just talking to you guys directly and giving you my thoughts. I can see we've got a few people here in the live already. RC, welcome. Christina, good morning for you as well. And Paul saying that it's evening over where he's at. And Gabe, welcome. Always good to have you in the live as well. And Harukawa Trash, welcome as well. Welcome back. So yeah, I'm going to go into some of that tier rankings with everybody tonight. It's evening on my side, if you couldn't tell. On the back here, you can probably see it's quite dark. So I'm going to go into the power rankings. I'm going to go into the tier rankings. I'm not too sure how many of you have actually seen some of that content that I did earlier in the season, but I'll definitely bring it up and we'll talk through it. So, Charlotte, that's a blast from the past. I haven't seen you on the lives for quite a long time. Welcome back. Really always love seeing people come back to these lives. So let me have a quick look and put up here the tier rankings for those that can remember. So the tier rankings that I did pre the season starting, we had lower tier, mid tier, top tier, and legends coming back based on my opinion of them and their gameplay. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to look at it now that the game has sort of halfway through, and I'm going to do a tier ranking here as well. Gabe, I see you, buddy. Saying Mucky is crying that Stevie is gone. Yes, I have had to do a lot of counseling with Mucky this week. He's been on my phone nonstop. It doesn't matter if I tell him, listen, I don't need you to be calling me up before we talk about this in the live recap and review. I don't want to know your thoughts before then, because otherwise I have to fake being surprised. But he has been struggling this week. So I've been that older brother and I've been that shoulder for him to cry on this week. But you're right, Gabe. It has not been an easy week for him. But maybe there's some silver lining to this bad week that Stevie's had, because we're going to be doing the review of the tier rankings, and let's see if we can move Stevie away from where he's currently at. Because I had him as a lower tier returnee when he came back. Charlotte, I'll let him know. Okay. Paul, same. So still the same. Like, I wasn't ready for Stevie to be gone when he left. I really thought that Stevie was going to make the merge this time. So it was sad to see him go. Harakawa is saying, was really hoping for Stevie win this season, even though I knew it'd never happen. Listen, Harakawa, I think Stevie plays this game 1,000 times. He doesn't win once. I love Stevie as a character. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think he's got the game to win. Tom, I think Mucky knows that. He knows. You guys have got a bromance going on. You're kind of like the Sam and David, from this season. You guys have got that bromance going on. He knows. Christina, yeah, love Stevie as well. All right, let's have a look at the tiers here. So when I started doing the tiers in the beginning of the season, I had Jackie at the bottom. I felt like she was one of those players that had everything to prove coming into the season. And I've got to admit, I was really gutted to see her leave due to an injury. And we spoke about that earlier in the season. Production for Australian Survivor, they've been doing a lot of things right. But when it comes to player safety and when it comes to those challenges, I feel like there's more that needs to be done because we've had so many injuries from Australian Survivor in recent times, and we don't want to see that. We don't want to see, we had Ross, who was a great character that season, that will probably never come back and play this show again because of the injury, because of some of the legal stuff that is going on outside of the show. And then we had last season Nina, when she was having a great season, she was in a great position, she ended up getting injured, and we don't want to see players go out that way. So I was really annoyed to see another player go down that way. We nearly lost George. George nearly broke his neck in that. I mean, how boring would this season have been without George if we lost him due to a challenge in the beginning of the season? So they really need to look at that. But sadly, I don't think I can move Jackie from the bottom of this tier list where she's currently sitting at. I do think she stays there, but I do hope that she comes back and plays again. What do you guys think? Simon and Nina made the merge this time. Happy for them. 100%. Dibs being Sam. Well, yeah, Tom, you'd still be in the game if you're Sam. Christina, I feel like Nina, Sam, Sean are in trouble. We'll be talking about that power ranking very soon. Gabe being medically evacuated sucks. Yep. 100%. Now, Stevie. I had Stevie as a lower tier player as well. I think that Stevie this season has come back and was a big character. I knew he could be a big character. I had a lot of fun with him. Sadly, he had a lot of plans and none of it worked out. And he was always at the mercy of either Simon and Geordie's game and that alliance, or at the mercy of George's game. And then obviously he got voted off without necessarily being a big threat in this game. But I do think, maybe Stevie has won me over a little bit because I do think he improved on his previous game. I do think that he showed some promise. So I probably would move Stevie up to the bottom of mid-tier. Based on the entertainment value that he gave me this season, I really enjoyed it. And maybe Mucky is rubbing off on me a little bit, but I feel pretty confident we can move him up. And I think that there won't be too many complaints here from any of the audience and the listeners in regards to Stevie moving up. Next, we're going to talk about Simon. I'm going to run through this specifically the legacy things pretty quickly because after that we'll do the power rankings. Simon to me and Nina, because I'm going to talk about both of them at the same time at this stage in the game. They were both seen as mid-tier players by me when I did this ranking, but I think I'm going to get a lot of flack for this one from people. I think Simon has actually leapfrogged Nina right now for me in mid-tier. Hold on, everyone. I know I'm getting a lot of hate coming my way for this because Nina is loved online and obviously she comes with a great legacy. So people would like to have Nina be untouchable. But if you look at Nina's game this season, there hasn't been, and again, it's maybe not her game, it's maybe the editors, but I can only judge on what I see. Her game hasn't shown much for me. She's definitely gotten alliances. She's been in alliances. She's probably a better player than Simon. But when you look at it from an entertainment standpoint, this being an entertainment, a show that you want to get behind and that you want to have longevity where people tune in and week out, I do think Simon has delivered every single episode this season. In fact, I think Simon could still go and prove people wrong and sneak his way into like a top 6, top 7 type of situation. And we may even start talking about him potentially being closer to top tier just based on the fact that he is a character. I love the characters first. I love Nina, but I don't think that Nina has delivered this season for me yet. I think last season she had a better season, but she ended up getting medevac, which is a shame. Let's have a look at some of the comments here. Also happy that Simon's still here. Stevie was fun character, you can't deny. 100%. No, I reckon Stevie's a legend just for the challenge win. Christina, no hate here. Not Nina's fault. She was the boring heroes tribe. Yeah, she didn't try something, but was the Triskroon. And it's interesting, Gabe, you mentioned that she was on the boring tribe because there was a hidden scene between Haley and George where they talked about working together. If the king and the queen comes together, they can run this game. And in that hidden scene, I don't know how many people have seen it yet. Hayley actually says that she was bored out of her mind being in that Heroes tribe because I feel like the strategy just wasn't there. And even Hayley's game, I've been critical of her game this season, not because she's not capable. In fact, she's doing the best that she can with everybody targeting her, right? But it was interesting to hear comments that it was a boring tribe because obviously that means that Nina probably didn't have much runway to play either. Yeah, Paul, I hear you on that one. I don't know how long Nina's going to last. Marcus completely agrees. Simon is entertaining this season, and this season wouldn't have been the same without Simon, George rivalry, now frenemies. Exactly. I think we talk about the George-Simon rivalry for a very, very long time in the future. It's going to be memorable for many seasons to come. In fact, I had a conversation with Simon just in DM, and Simon was like, I hope at least I'm memorable in some way this season. And I said to him, I think you are, mate. I think people, for good or bad, people are going to remember you, and it's good. If I was to play Survivor, I would much rather be remembered than forgotten. So I think that is good. Love Nina, but she's a potato, or is it a potato? Lol, only time will tell. The fact Simon is still even in this game impressive, even if that was a shaky game that got him there. Plus, he had a huge edit from Cade. Agreed. That hidden scene was good. Really wish they didn't cut it out. Harakawa, you've got to ask yourself, why did they cut that scene out? I feel like they would have shown it if Hayley and George was going to work deep in the game. I feel like that's going to be... someone's going to snipe either one of them. Velvet. Nina just seemed like a reserved person, so even if her gameplay was amazing, she doesn't seem to really make good TV, resulting in less screen time unless she is needed for the story. Like in her first season, she was there with Sandra, right? So obviously she was going to be a big part of the story because Sandra was there. Christina, I think Simon will be dragged as a goat like Owen in 43. I can see that. Simon is an Australian Survivor own. So there's a few people that are seeing it that way. Okay, moving on to Geordie. I actually got a bit of flack from people when I did this tier ranking, when I put Geordie in top tier. A few people said he should have been mid-tier. And I'm kind of conflicted because I almost feel like he played, in some ways, a better game this season because he was trying to play within himself. He was trying to be a unifier, and then he got swap screwed to a certain degree. But then obviously with the way he played, he ended up overplaying his hand. He wanted to be the showman, the guy that does the moves for TV, which is what George does, but he doesn't have the same skill set. So I am kind of between mid to top tier with him. I still think he's in a pretty solid spot there. Let me know in the chat where you guys would put him. Would you put Geordie just in the top tier, or do you guys reckon he should be mid-tier after this season? Now, as a person, I really like Geordie. I think he's a top bloke. Where does he rank as a player? That's what I want to know. Christina is saying that the Joker's heart wasn't truly in it. Yeah. Listen, I think he came back too soon. I've spoken to players. I've interviewed Survivor players on this channel, and they have told me that it can take up to a year for them to just decompress and not think about the game. I think he came back too soon. I think he had a lot of things going on at home, and that made it really hard on him playing this game. Wall saying top tier, Tom saying mid, Cade's mid, Judy was the voice of reason. So at the moment, we've got 2 mid, 1 top. So at this stage, it's looking like he's mid, unless somebody else is going to go in and tie it up at top within the next couple of seconds. Because I'm going to move on to Sean, but I'll keep an eye on the chat. Now, Sean, coming into this season, I was bullish in putting him as a top tier player. Even though he went early in the season, I saw potential in him as a player. And I thought if he was to come back this season, get the numbers, learn from his mistakes, he went up against 2 pound-for-pound legends of the game in Luke Toki and David Gannett, and obviously didn't survive that. They played him that season. But I was impressed by Sean this season. I think if Sean's Alliance got the numbers, which is what he tried to play. He tried to play the Mark Wales game. He tried to play, let's get the numbers, let's make it a boring and predictable game. And if there wasn't someone like George with that capability in the season, I think Sean could very well be the winner of the season. So I find it very difficult at this stage not to put Sean right at the top of top tier. I think he's increased, and I think he's definitely leapfrogged the 2 people I've got ahead of him that I will be talking to next. So let's have a look and see what people say here. Geordie was the voice of reason. I've seen that one. Kahuna, welcome to the live. Kahuna will be back tomorrow night when we do a full recap and review of the week. And he said liking him gives a few more points, but based on performance, he's mid. So there's another mid. Odette is top tier. His game plan was good before George went on top of him. Mid. I'm seeing more mid. So I feel like my instinct to put him at mid, but top of mid, is probably correct. So I'm gonna put him there. Harukawa saying Jordy is the top for me now since his game has improved. It's funny how I almost think his game has improved this season, but I find that I'm leaning towards mid, and there's a few people that are telling me mid at this point. Potato, welcome. What is a potato supremacist? That is a great name. Gabe, Sean coming in was a lot of people's winner pick. I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised, especially after seeing David Gannett win recently, seeing Mark win last season. The meta of Australian Survivor is slowly but surely changing, and alpha men are starting to win the show, which previously, or for a long period of time, I think Jericho was like the only winner, and he wasn't necessarily like an alpha male. And it was pretty much women-dominated Australian Survivor until pretty recently. I'd put Geordie above Sean for sure. Sean is overrated because of the edit. His decision-making was horrible. I think one thing I would criticize Sean on, I don't agree with you, Odette, but I mean, that's the great thing about this, right? Is that fans, not everybody's going to see it the same way. And I'm sure when I do the power rankings, people are going to disagree with me even more. One thing I will definitely criticize Sean on is I think he hasn't played the relationship with Simon correctly. Like, Simon just wants to be acknowledged by Sean, and he's not giving him that acknowledgement, and it would have been so easy for Sean to do it. I mean, giving someone acknowledgement out on the island to win the game should be easy to do. It should be like, natural for you to just do that. Stevie did it. Stevie did it with George. I don't think Stevie thought George was all that. I think he was jealous of George to a certain degree, and he wanted to vote him out. But he was like, you're the best player ever. I love you, George. Everything you do turns to gold. How difficult is it to do that? Modern Viking says he only eats potatoes. Tom McPherson says, if Flick stays top tier by the end of this, we're going to need to put Stevie as a legend to make up for it. Potato Super is mid-tier for Geordie from my side. Sean is not highlighted. Did you see the sneak peek for next week that shows Sean telling Nina, Sam, and Simon he has an idol and wants to take George? Do you think Simon and Haley might jump on board to vote George? Interesting. Well, I think if he brings up the fact that he's got an idol, this is going to be the opportunity for Simon and Haley to make a move if he lets them know. But it's a risky gameplay at this stage. I feel like Sean, I don't think he's winning this season, but I feel like he's got one big move in him. And if he plays his idol correctly, he could take out a George or a Shawnee, like one of the top tier players in this game. So I think there's something that's going to happen. He kept Haley safe, even though everyone should have known they'd hook up at the merge. Yep. Apparently, Haley was trash talking George the whole time pre-merge. But people should have known. These two did a TV show together. They did Talking Tribal together. Like, how did people think that George and Haley did a show together, spent so much time together out? I mean, they were on each other's Instagram feed all the time. How did they not know that? How did they not think, maybe a real-life relationship and a friendship outside of the game is going to trump whatever happens in the game? Sean screwed up treating Simon like nothing instead of comforting him. I'll be cheering. I'm not a fan of George. Sean to tell them I saw it in the clip. All right, so I'm going to move on. I do still think Sean is top tier for me, and he is top of the top tier now. Sam, when we do the power rankings, I think he's in a bad spot, and we'll talk about that pretty soon. But I think Sam, for me, I came into this season and I thought, listen, the guy made it pretty deep the first time. He was pretty good socially. He was, obviously mateship and all that stuff that annoys a lot of people that watch Survivor. But I've actually still been impressed by Sam this season, because there was a few times that people were gunning for him, and he did read the room. He did realize that people were coming for him. He did try and flip the script. And by putting a bit of pressure on Tribal Council, you had Sean coming up with a different plan not to vote Sam out. So I kind of feel like Sam at this stage does still deserve to be in top tier. I don't think that Sam necessarily deserves to be above Flick, but Sam and Flick are in some ways almost the same. I just think Flick has got a better social game. And I know some people said that I should put Flick down from top tier and we have to put Stevie had Legend here to make up for it. I still think Flick is a very good Survivor player. Yes, she got caught with her hands, in the cookie jar this week, but his social game to save herself when George was coming after her. Remember, George is like one of the best and most persuasive players we've ever seen in any version of Survivor. Now, if he had his mindset on anybody else to vote them out, I don't think that they saved themselves in that situation. But I think due to the fact that she saved herself, I would still put her as a top-tier player. She's not legendary, and I don't think she's the best strategist out there, but I think her social game definitely puts her up pretty high. Let's have a look. Yeah, Haley was calling George the snake, Sam snake, no mateship, George bad. Yep. Just really want Sam to get out of the mateship mentality. I get you. Listen, I get you. But I do still think somewhere inside of Sam, there's a decent player. I don't think he's mid-tier. I think he's bottom of the top tier for me here. If George leaves, the show will become very boring. I agree. Like, who's going to be... I mean, if George and Simon leaves, that'd be very boring. George is going to give Sean the flick offer. Put the idol in the fire, Sean, or you're a dead duck. That was one of the funniest moments of Survivor, by the way. And I know some people said she should have done it. I think that's results focused, and people focused on the fact that she didn't have a legitimate idol. Me personally, I don't think I would have thrown it in the fire. I don't think I would have had the guts to. Like, I would have been like, "No, I'm keeping this. Maybe you bluff it. Hope you've got it for another round or something." All right, yeah, I heard Haley's badmouth George by the heroes, but it's such an obvious lie. Us fans know that they're BFFs outside of the game. Yeah, they should have known better. Damn, I love George. Chris likes Sam a lot. I'll say Sam at least realized he's on the bottom and didn't just do mateship still. Yep. I mean, I like the fact that Sam woke up a little bit and he was like, I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to vote out Haley. Sean's been protecting her for too long. He wanted to make a move with David and Nina. And in some ways, I'm actually kind of sad we're not going to see Sam betray people this season, because I feel like he would have, but he's got no agency in the game. He's got no numbers now. I think it's a great social game, but next to no strategic mind to back it up. Should have known turning on Liz and Shani immediately would blow up in her face, no matter what. And Harukawa saying, if George and Simon both leave, it'll just be Shantae Central, which I'm all in for. Yeah, she would have to carry the show, and she could. She definitely could. All right, so now looking at these legends currently, I feel very good about each one of them, and I feel very good about each one of them exactly where they are. Shani has been great. She saved George a couple of times this season, but I don't think that without George, she would have been as effective in some ways, because he's the tool, the brunt tool that just gets it done. Like, he's like a freak of nature, a force of nature that just bulldozes his way through this game. And he definitely strategically, I think, is carrying that alliance massively. But Shani has definitely been a big part of that game. She's twice let him know when people were coming for him. She's twice saved him. She's twice helped him to figure out when his read's been off. And I do think as a package, they're working very well together. But for me, Haley at this stage, you can't move her away from being top of the legend tier. She's already won a season. She is playing with house money this season. So that top three, I will just keep it the same at this stage. Let's have a look and see what people are saying. Well, Sam's first season in with his numbers flipping on his head. Sandy P, I just joined Sam as top tier. Yeah. To me, Sandy, I get it. A lot of people are not happy with that. I don't think he's a great player, but I think he's got some great instincts, if that makes sense. When people were coming for him, at least he knew they were coming for him, right? And he was actively trying to change the script, trying to get Nina and David and then also Liz in and making that move against Haley because Sean wouldn't budge. So I don't feel like he's a horrible player. I know some people would like me to just trash him, but I'm not talking about the power rankings. We'll talk about the power rankings next. The fact that the MT Alliance wasn't able to bring Haley and Simon on board speaks a lot about their gameplay. 100%. 100%. Well, Sam's in trouble. Velvet, yeah, but George most likely would have been a pre-merge boot without Shani, so I think she could do better without him than the other way around. He needed her in the game, and he needed her to get that momentum in the beginning. I do think Shani could do well without him in the game, but I do think Shani was smart enough to realize she needed him in the game as that shield. Now, has she taken him too far? I don't think so. I think she's probably taken him as far as he should be going at this stage because people are still going to go for Haley and George before they go for Shani, I think. So great gameplay by her. And I mean, by the end of this, we might do another review. She might topple both of them, especially if she wins this season. But I think at the moment, I think they're still above. Explain yourself, Chris. I think I did a good explanation in the beginning, Sandy. You might have to go back and listen to that first bit. Tom McPherson, I agree with Chris. Sam at least makes it far in almost any season he plays in. Consistent player. Exactly. I don't think if we had more players here, and maybe we do a top tier ranking for all of the Australian Survivor players when it's off season, I think he's going to be lower top tier always. But I do think he sneaks into top tier because of the fact that he will get deep in most seasons. I don't think he'll ever be in a season where you don't make the merge, at least. King George will rule this season. Let's hope so, RC. Agreed. Sam had a good reads in the swap, but the move against Haley, I think, is a credit to Nina and Dave, not Sam. Shani needed George's strategic mind as well. Remember her wrong read on Flick, 100%. Gemini, welcome, and comment from Twitch. It says, have you applied for Australian Survivor yet? If not, you should. Fun fact, I've never applied for Australian Survivor because I don't live in Australia, I live in New Zealand. I have applied for Survivor New Zealand the first season, and I got pretty far in the casting for the first season. In some ways, I'm happy I didn't get onto that season because I've kind of felt like Survivor New Zealand wasn't really ready. Now, I've heard good things about Survivor New Zealand Season 2. I never watched that. I have also got pretty good context with Survivor South Africa because I'm South African born, so I'm from Cape Town originally. And I've met Ludu Buta, not about getting on the show, just spoke to him about Survivor in general. And I know a lot of Survivor players in South Africa. So I do think if there is ever, and I'm not saying I will be, nothing's been promised, but I think if there is a chance for me to get on Survivor, the most likely show I'll get on is Survivor South Africa. I would love to play Survivor one day. I think it would be a blast, but I don't know how I'll do because so many people now know, like not a lot of people, but the fans know. So if there's like a super fan season, people might be like, this guy, he talks about the show, even though I don't think my takes are that odd. RT final three: George, Shani, and Sean. Sam's consistently trash. It's all good, Gemini. Would you rather play AU or Survivor South Africa? I feel like I would want to play Australia for the challenges because I love Australian Survivor challenges. I think it would be so cool. But I think I would like to play Survivor South Africa because of the edit. I think Survivor South Africa gives a more fair edit to everybody. So if I wasn't a part of the main story on Australia, I probably would be purpled, or there's a good chance of me being purpled. I think on Survivor South Africa, there's a better chance that my strategy will be shown, even if I'm not winning the game, if that makes sense. All right, Harukawa. Nice. Kia ora, I should say. It's welcome or hello in Maori. RCRC, bro, I reckon you will kick butt if you're able to play Australian Survivor. I hope so, RC. I appreciate you saying that. Tom, what if Stevie disguised himself as George this season and has actually been making all the moves? That would make Stevie a legend, very sneaky. You're bringing that mucky energy tonight, Tom. RCRC, you will be so likable. Okay. I hope so. That could also be a threat, right? So if you're a likable person and you know a little bit about the game, people might just be like, we'll cut this person very quickly. Lachlan's Land, welcome. If you go on Aussie Survivor, no one will know you. No one in Aussie Survivor even watches the show in general. Yeah, hopefully. I hope so. Maybe that's the case because I feel like the Survivor South Africa community is a lot more tight. And all the super fans know who's around. Everybody almost knows each other, All right, let's move on to the power rankings because I think I've sort of held off long enough in doing the tier rankings. And let's talk about the players that are still left in the game. Now, for me, currently, the player that I'm very confident has zero chance at winning this game and is at the bottom at number 10 is Sam. I think that, Sam coming into this end game now has been targeted a few times already. And how many times can he survive before the axe comes swinging his way? There is a fear from George that Sam could potentially pull Simon back as well. So I don't think you should be fearful of Sam. I think you should be more fearful of Sean. But for some other reason, I see Sam as the next person out at this point in the game. And sadly, he's just run out of runway and he's run out of numbers. Also seeing George make those faces in the last episode, being super annoyed at Sam, tells me that George really doesn't like him. And maybe he's also got that whole mateship thing against Sam at this point. And he was defending Maddie really hard after that vote against David. Because obviously Sam would have been furious because that was his ride or die. It was his right-hand person that got voted out. So I think that Sam is at the bottom here. What do you guys reckon? Gemini, which Australian Survivor and South African Survivor cast would you like to see on future challenge seasons? Which Australian Survivor... Okay, I'm assuming you're meaning which castaways would I like to see on the challenge. If it was Australian Survivor, I would have said Brooke, but she's already been on the challenge Australia. So I'd like to see Luke Toki on the challenge. I reckon, he won about 4 immunities in his second season. So I think he'd be decent, but he'd be a lot of fun. I also would like to see Jordan from Blood versus Water on it. I think he would be good. He'd be good, a good representation as well on the show. I don't think we've ever had a Polynesian ethnicity on the main show challenge. So if we're talking about main show challenge, and I think also another one, man, I forgot her name now, that got into the finals. There was a challenge beast last season. I'd love to see her on there as well. And for South Africa, it'd have to be Chappies and Rob Bentelli. Those are the two I'd like to see. Unfortunately, I do have to agree with you, boss. I'm assuming it's about Sam. I think final 3 prediction. All right. This one, I agree. Are you doubting Sam? That's not very loyal or mateshipy of you. Hey, just because I think he's a top-tier player, he'll get to the merge every time. I think he's run out of runway. Sam looks like he's clear next vote. Liz looking very good this season. Lydia on the challenge? Yeah, 100%. Lydia would do good, and Abby. Both of them would do good. The thing is, what really annoyed me about the Challenge Australia and why I think it failed when it comes to the viewership is they didn't take legitimate stars from Survivor Australia and put them on the Challenge Australia. It just makes sense. It's a reality TV, competitive reality TV show, and you chose to take all these love show people and put them on there, and people just weren't interested. What kind of show is the Challenge? I've never really looked into it. The Challenge is a competitive reality TV show. So if you like Survivor, I think you may like it as well. So there's some previous Survivor players that have been playing in it recently. We've had Natalie Anderson on it. We've had Jay Starrett on it. And we've had Michelle Fitzgerald on it. And there's been a lot of shows. If you go down that deep dive, believe me, there's a lot of content for you to watch. It's nearly 40 seasons. In fact, if you take all the offshoot seasons, it's way over 40 seasons. George should be more scared of Sean, but I believe Sam would wiggle his way in while be easy target next time. Shay, that's the one, Shay. I'd love to see Shay. Shay's a beast, by the way. If you check out her Instagram and if you check out her training routine, I can see why she beasted her season. She's an absolute legend. Hayley would also be great at the challenge. I don't know if Hayley would want to do it. It's my thinking with Hayley. Hayley might not. Yeah, I feel like she's going to move on with her life now. And I don't think Hayley got into Survivor to become a reality TV star, if that makes sense. I think she's going to just move on and have a normal life. And my call is we don't see Hayley back probably unless it's a global crossover season or like a winners at war for Australian Survivor. David on the challenge? Yeah, definitely. David would be awesome. I'd enjoy him. Obviously, David's getting a little bit older now. I think he's like in his 40s already. So I don't know how he would compete. But sometimes the challenge have some older competitors that do extremely well. Too many batchy stars? Lachlan, you know what I mean, eh? Like, yeah. But wasn't it a batchy star that ended up... anyways, I don't want to spoil anything. Go and watch it. They need the viewership. RCRC, in your honest opinion, do you think Liz will somehow double cross both George and Shani? We'll get to that when we talk about Liz and my power rankings. Sam needs 8 immunity wins in a row. Yeah, he's not going to do that. Brooke saying the challenge makes Survivor look easy. I don't know. I think that she was egged on maybe by the production team to do it. One of the things that a lot of people may not know is that it was a US production team that do the main show that recorded and were the behind-the-scenes crew for the challenge. So I'm sure they egged her on and they were like, come on, just say this because, then maybe you'll have a better chance of getting on the main show or something. I don't believe it. I don't think it's harder. What about Johnny? He could... Johnny was on it. My gut feeling tells me Liz is the biggest outsider. Chris, is it a coincidence that you both wearing blue shirt and red cap like Sam in this photo? I wish I could say I planned it. I don't have that type of attention to detail. Shani said she's up for more reality TV in a recent interview on a TV website this week. Yeah, I mean, Shani would be a great character. I just don't think Shani could win the challenge. I don't think, like, she could strategically get to the end. There's some good strategic players in the challenge. The problem is at the end game, you have to do a final. The last challenge final took 100 hours for them to complete. Like, you need legitimate athletes to do this stuff, Liz would destroy the 100%. Sam really lucky he's on a really dominating tribe in both the season so he can skate to the merge. Yeah. All right, let's get into the next one here. I do know that we've got a few people still to get through, and I have only spoken about the person that I think is right at the bottom at the moment. The next person that is on this list is going to be someone that I think maybe you guys won't agree with this, but I'm doing my power rankings based on who I think is going to get to the final more than anything else, not necessarily who's going to win. But I do think this person, Simon, is right at the bottom for me still. Now, I know that some people will say, hey, what do you mean? He's just gotten into this alliance. But I feel like he's no one's first choice. He's at the bottom. I don't think Simon has got the ability to play that middle game effectively and jump back and forth. And I'm very fearful that George still does not trust him. So when George gets the numbers in the game, he might look somewhere else. And because Sean has got an idol, Sean only has to play that idol correctly once. So Sean kind of still pips Simon for me in my power rankings. And I'm putting Simon as number 9 at this stage. He's going to have to play the underdog game, and he's going to have to worm his way up from the bottom. Because I don't think there is anybody in this game right now that will put their neck on the line for Simon, which is a shame. I like the guy as a character and someone that brings entertainment to the show. But I think that at the moment, it's just a ceasefire between him and George. I do think George is going to swing for him. What do you guys think about Simon being number 9 here? Too low or too high? Simon ain't winning. Might go far, though. Yeah, could go far. I'm basing my power rankings purely on who I think is making the end. And I don't think he's getting the end. Velvet, I mean, Simon didn't really do anything active to get into the majority. He was just approached because he was an easy number at the bottom. 100%. Chris, I think Haley is going to use Simon for her game. In the past episode, Simon has been trusting Haley. Gives you a little bit of an idea of how high I think Haley will be in this power ranking. Because, yeah, I don't want to talk about Haley before we get into it. But I don't, yeah, it's hard not to talk about Haley because you brought her up, but we'll talk about her in a second. Gabe, Simon has to flip with Haley before they get to 7. 100%. The problem is, I don't know if Simon and Haley's going to flip. Hey, Mucky, welcome. I think it's too low, but Stevie is at the top. So, yeah, always. Mucky, we've been telling everybody you've had a hard week. Everybody put some hearts in the chat for Mucky. He's had a pretty hard week this week with his heart being broken and Stevie no longer being in the game. Paul Newman, good call on Simon. Yeah. So Simon either reaches the final or goes home next week. Now, if I was in the game, I would be dragging Simon's ass to the end because I don't think Simon, if I feel like he's got my back in the game and if I have agency, I don't think Simon could win the game at this stage because I feel like he's made too many fatal flaws and people won't take his game seriously when he gets there. Unless he plays like an excellent game from here on out. I just don't see him winning. Kahuna, only chance to get to the end is as a GOAT. Yeah. Final 3, Simon, George, and Shani, or Matt, Jerry, Shani. Shani wins both times. If Simon do manage to somehow do an idol, then he might have some chance. Yeah, he needs an idol. And we know that there is an idol out there, so it could be interesting to see who's actually going to get that idol. That could be really interesting because that could change the game up big time as well. And by the way, I think I said it in the top 5 takes. I'll say it again. I love the fact that Australian Survivor is still playing the game on hard mode. They're not making it easy by giving the idol in a parchment or a satchel that's like colored, like the tribe colors. Simon, I think, will be a consensus vote and might be voted out by his idol, Sean. Wow. That would be pretty poetic if that happens. Whoa. Simon goes out third and crushes my soul. Odette, I think next week, based on the previews, either they successfully take out George or Nina turns to save him. Interesting. Simon, Haley, and Matt needs to take Nina and Sean to at least cut one of the OG Spice Girls. Tom, you'll get through this, Mucky. You're just strong as Stevie. Maybe Simon will find a coconut and play it as an idol. Agree with that. If Simon reaches final trouble counseling, he has zero chance unless he's super dominant from here on out. Yep. All right, let's get into the number 8 person here on my rankings. And I'm pretty sure if you guys put it in the chat, you'll know who it is. Because there's kind of like a theme, and I'm not trying for it to be a theme, but number 8, Sean. Now, if you asked me maybe 3 episodes ago, 4 episodes ago, would Sean rank this low in my power rankings? I would have said, hell no. He's one of the few players out there that's actually had an edit around him and talked about wanting to win the show. He's got an idol he hasn't told anyone about. He may tell them about it now, but Sean has lost power in this game. And I don't see anybody wanting to see, like, sort of drag Sean in this game and take him head on at challenges as they continue on. Because we know that Australian Survivor in general is physical. It is endurance-based. And I do think Sean has got a lot in the tank. So I think he's out pretty quickly. So I don't feel very good for these meaty boys at the moment, or the alpha boys in the game. Michael, my heart is so badly broken, it's more crushed than tomatoes in a can that's been dropped off the Empire State Building by someone who forgot to tie their shoelaces. Maybe Simon saves George next episode. That could be interesting. I'd love to see that. Lost this edit too. Yep. Mucky, you can still win the game dedicated to Steve's legacy. I reckon Sean is higher ranked than Nina. I'll tell you in a second why I have Sean ranked below Nina. When I talk about Nina, I'll tell you why. Sean not winning, he's got to pull Mike Holloway. Can see him make a major move, getting a big player out though. Yep. I think Sean, JT played the idol too greedy on the flick vote. Oh, okay, yeah. So you think he should have saved Flick in that round? I don't know. I feel like if he did, that they probably would have still stuck to, we need to get another one of the OG heroes out, and maybe because he popped his head out and played the game, they might be like, now we need to chop him because doesn't have an idol. So if he doesn't win immunity, we vote him out. So it could have made him an even bigger threat. Maybe he would have jumped ahead of Sam in the picking order, but at this stage I feel like he's not ahead of Sam. So I don't know. It is tough. He does need numbers in the game though. I agree on your take with Sean. The OG heroes had been crushing in the first half of the season, so they aren't able to explore and strengthen their alliances anymore. Araka's edit is downwards trajectory. Nina is an upwards one. 100%. Odette, you're onto it, and we're going to get into the next one here. I want to keep it moving here. So we've got the 7th person on the power ranking. Her ears are burning because we've been talking about her. And it's going to be Miss Nina Twine. She's going to be the 7th person here in my rankings. And I still feel low on Nina in regards to where she's sitting in the game right now. For her to get to the end, she's got to infiltrate an alliance that's never played with her. And she's got to try and work with them. And I don't know if she can do that. But I saw a scene where she was talking to George in this last episode. I think it was this last episode. And George was saying to her, I don't have a problem with you. You and me, we're good. You've never done anything to me. So to me, that is George. Remember his thing. His thing is, his superpower in this game is he likes to work with his enemies. Even though she's not an enemy, she's kind of like on the outside. He likes to have options. And I think Nina might become one of George's options in this game. And he's reaching out, giving her the olive branch. So what Odette said in regards to her edit being in an upward trajectory, I agree. I think she's on the up because George likes her. Don't think so, Flick. And Simon needs players around to make a move. And Sean wants to be one of those numbers. Yeah, it was last episode on the hammy. Yep. I remember that. So I think Nina's got some longevity in the game. maybe she is the person who ends up saving George, like someone said earlier. That could be a possibility. But I also think that, even though I moved Nina downwards on my legacy tier that I had, and maybe I'm a bit low on her from what I've seen so far, I do think there's a great player within her. And she's now also shown us when she went up against the lifeguard, Maddie, in the Hold Your Breath challenge, that she's got a lot of heart and that she could potentially be a threat in those endurance challenges or the things where it's mind over matter. So she's got a very strong mental focus about her, so I wouldn't completely count Nina out. Nina feels like the dark horse of the season to me. If her relationship with Liz isn't burned, I think she has potential to come back. That's right. They've never really explained to us what happened between her and Liz, because when Liz went over to the other tribe after she mutinied, there was, Nina whispered to her, put in a good word for us. Like, maybe that's one of the reasons why George doesn't dislike Nina, because he knows Nina was one of the few people that were willing to work with Liz when she was on the other side. So the big problem that Nina has in this game right now is that Haley is still closer to George than what Nina is. And if Haley wants Nina out because of the fact that Nina was coming for her and she knows about it, she could put a lot of pressure on George potentially and even make George choose, which at this stage, I think he would lean more towards Haley. RC, my predictions is she might end up working with George at the same time. Nina will play two sides. And she also has a relationship of sorts with Liz. Yep. The Spice Girls should just have picked Nina as part of the Girls Alliance. Yeah, they should have. I don't know why they haven't. That's an interesting one. I don't think they've played with her for long enough, or Shani hasn't. But I am surprised that they're not looking at her as that option at this point, because I still firmly believe that the reason that Shani and Liz wanted to get Flick in on that Girls Alliance is because they wanted to have some power of their own, because at the moment, George is sitting in the middle of two factions within that alliance. And I think Shani and Liz also wanted their own option, like George has currently got an option. Let's have a look. What other comments are coming in? David said in his exit press, the relationship with Liz was burned due to telling George about the Haley blind side. Oh, right. That makes a lot of sense, actually, because we didn't see that explained to us in the game. But yeah, I mean, obviously she had loose lips about that. But what did they expect? She was always going to go back to her core alliance. I think George should be more to blame for going and I'm surprised Liz didn't go back to George and that she wasn't upset about George just telling Haley about it. Who knows? Final three might be George, Nina, and Liz. Nina can throw Haley under the bus to take Haley's spot. There's also the show pre-swap. Nina was always working both sides. She always gave info to Ben and Shani. All right, let's get into the next one here. And this person is going to rank number 6, I believe. That's what we're up to. And this shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Some people might still think that she can go a lot deeper than what she can. I don't think she's getting to the end again. It's going to be Haley. I think that, Haley is a lot higher for me than Simon. Obviously, Simon was my second lowest on the power rankings at this stage, because I don't think Simon's got the capability to play that mid-game very well. I think Haley does, but Haley being a winner at some point is going to catch up to her. If Haley wins this game, she's going to have to win out until the end. And how I see Haley being taken out of this game, the most likely way is by Shani and Liz sniping Haley, because they notice that she is close to George and that they want to weaken George, because George has got all the options in the game, it seems. So I think it's dangerous to keep Haley and George in this game for too long. And I just don't think that Haley has that person outside of George that is going to go to bat for her personally. So that's why she's ranked at 6 for me. If Haley and someone wants to flip, Nina can leak that and George targets Haley. Could happen. Hey, Zach, welcome. Jerry is flying under the radar. 100%. So like I said in the beginning of this, my power rankings is based on who I think is going to get to the end. Not necessarily who's playing the best game, but who do I think is going to get into the final 3 And if they do get there, do they have a chance of winning? I guess is also a part of it. But to win the game, you have to get to the end. Like Haley, if she gets to the end, in my opinion, she wins. She should win. A previous winner should never, when they return, get back to the end of the game. When they do, they should win like Sandra did, or they should win like Tony did. Well, I guess in Tony's case, there was only winners, so a winner was always going to win. Michael, I know this is a podcast about Survivor, but I just realized there's never been a commercial for microwaves. All right. Paul, Haley ain't winning. I agree. Imagine winning $1 million because of Survivor. Yeah. I mean, she didn't win $1 million. She won $500,000. But my understanding is that there's no tax on winnings in Australia. So they're probably not that far from what a winner would win in America. Jacinda, welcome to the live. Why did Haley leave her alliance? I thought she was close to Sean. She was close to Sean, but I think she realized that the numbers weren't necessarily there. And I also think that that whole conversation about George giving that little bits of information to her throughout the game proved George's loyalty to her, and she knows that Nina was coming for her. So that alliance always was going to gun for her at some point. So I think she made the right choice, but she's not in a great position. I think Haley has a lot more competition when it comes to the challenges. She's good at this season like Liz and Shani. 100%. All right, let's get on to the next one here as we go into the final 5. Now, these next 2, I've got a feeling is going to be the most contentious, and you guys might not agree with me on this, and I'm okay with that. We all have our own opinions about who we think is going to make it to the end. And I'm ready to hear your thoughts on this one. But biggest shock of my power rankings probably so far, number 5, Miss Shani. And hear me out on this one. I know Shani has been a big player this whole season, and we spoke about how George needed her in the game and vice versa. I just think her edit is on a downward trajectory in some ways, because like she's not necessarily driving the strategy. And I think that George is going to come to a point, if the game is in a predictable way and they get to the final 5 with the 5 players that are left currently, George would be a fool to take Shani and Liz to the end versus Jerry and Matt, who I think he has a better shot at beating at the end. So this prediction of power ranking is again based on who I think is going to get to the end. And I don't think Shani is getting to the end if she sticks and stays loyal to George. She needs to snipe George. And I don't know if she's going to do it because she does take this game quite personally. Like we saw with Flick, you know, she wants to hang out with George after the game. So can she make that move? I don't know. So that's why I've got her as my 5th choice here. Odette, yeah, Haley isn't winning. I don't see her reaching the final. Haley isn't going to beat George this time. They both make it to the end. I feel like whoever took Shani out, they will win if they reach Final Trouble Council. Yeah? Velvet, Shani is clearly getting frustrated by how controlling George is with the vote, and I think that strain on that relationship will either be the downfall of her or George. I agree. I'm just betting on George, not Shani. Because I've learned that in Survivor, you never bet against George. Like, the first season that he played, I thought he was gone so many times. He's come back this season even better. So I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to bet against George in this thing. I think George wins out over the 2 of them. Gemini, Spice Girls, Shani got inducted to the Australian Survivor Hall of Fame. Do you think it can be a hat trick for the Spice Girls Alliance, George, Liz, or just George? I can see it. I don't know if Liz will get in there this early on. I mean, if Liz wins the season, maybe. If she wins in a great fashion, because I've said it many times, if a newbie wins the season from this point onwards, it's going to be one of the most impressive wins, because at this point, a returnee should win this show. I can see George sniping Shani before Shani snipes George. Also, she and Liz won't be ever turn on each other. Exactly. I think George is a pragmatic person, and he's like, he does the numbers, and he will let his logical side of his mind take over, and he will snipe Shani, I think, and hope that he can build bridges afterwards. Frere, welcome. The moment someone's name is written down, they're just as great risk in the future episode. Shani's being a target recently. Does that make me have concern for her? Yeah, I think she's taking the game too personally, and I think it's going to be her downfall. Gabe, only way Shani out is George, or is the big target hero's minority gets out. I don't know. I don't know if it could be either or. It could be either or. I feel like people will want to take George out before Shani if it's the OG heroes. So in my mind, I feel like George would be I think George would be a part of the plan to take out Shani. Sabri, welcome to the live. That's an awesome comment. I do these vids because I love the show and I love interacting with the fans. And, you know, a little bit off topic, but this last month has been so amazing because you guys really motivate me to keep doing this content because the growth of the channel has just been insane. Like, Australian Survivor fans are the best. You guys have supported this channel like no one else's business. I think I've had nearly 300 subs in a month. And the views, the comments, I love reading all of them. I love coming back to them. So honestly, thank you so much for following it because without you, I'm just the guy talking into a mic. So thank you so much for the support. RCRC, my prediction is whoever gets King George out will be the winner. Could be, yeah. I kind of hope George wins it at this point, but we'll talk about where I rank him, and we'll talk about why I think the game's going to play out this way. And I could be completely wrong, but we all love speculating, right? Jacinta Tate, I thought this being her third time playing, she's had the biggest social game and branch out to the Heroes more. She should be branching out. She should be looking at other connections. She's not. Liz wins rookie season versus all these absolute monsters. She's the greatest winner. Yeah, Liz, Jerry, or Matt, all three of them could still win. Velvet, but I think Shani would be way more aware of George trying to snipe her. I don't know if George would see Shani coming. I don't know. I don't know if she would be, because the problem I have with Shani, she could be. She's got a great read on the game, but for some other reason, no one ever really can pick up when George is lying to them, and he's really good at it. And I feel like I said, I feel like she really likes George now, and she wants to go and, you know, drink some margaritas with him afterwards, be friends. I would love to be proven wrong. I just saw this week that she really takes this game personally, and I love Shani. And I hope she proves me wrong, but I'm worried for her. CDXX, keep going, man. I always go to your channel every morning after every episode. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the support. It's all Stevie's content that boosted the channel for sure. Yep, 100%. But also awesome work, man. Thanks. I don't know if Shani even knows Matt is close to George. Yeah, I don't know if she does, but I think she does. I think it's why she wanted Flick, because she was like, that's just another number I'm not close to and George is close to. So what Shani and Liz should be doing right now, if they're going to win this game, they should get Nina in, like someone said earlier, and they should have that extra option within the Girls Alliance. And I just don't see them proactively going to Nina. I saw George going to Nina. So that tells me that George is doing this extra work. He's hustling like no one else's business. So I'm thinking George has got a higher likelihood of going that way. Sammy, I want the King to win. Jerry can't win. Your stock is crashing. Yep. I said buy Jerry stock very early on in the season. It's going down. It's going down at the moment. Kind of like what stock is really struggling. Well, all stock is currently struggling. Velvet, I think George has the same problem as Sari when it comes to even if he makes the late game, he won't ever win the final challenge where he could be taken out. Yes, I do think that's a problem. George is the best liar in Survivor history. I think Flick knew kind of when he was coming for her, but it was like a common denominator. She probably saw that he was working with Matt or got along with Matt really well. Shani should definitely worry about Matt, considering the fact that George was willing to cut Sneaky for Matt. Who has surprised you the most this season? Surprised me the most. I'm trying to think who did surprise me the most this season. That's an interesting one. And other people put your comments in here as well, because it's a really good question. I feel like a lot of the players have played predictably to me. So Nina surprised me for not being as proactive as I thought she would be in the game. But I do think it's because of the tribe that she was in. So that was a bad surprise. I'm hoping that Nina comes back in this latter half of the game. Probably Geordie. Yeah, Marcus, Geordie is a good one. Geordie is a good one. Because I came in with Geordie, I had like low expectations of him. I thought he was a showman, and he overplayed his hand quite a lot in his first season. And I wasn't as like I was high on him as an entertainer, but I wasn't as high on him as a game player. And he changed this game up a lot coming back this season. I feel like if he didn't get into the wrong tribe and didn't get the power going to his head like he did again, Geordie, there's a good player in Geordie. So I'd love to see Geordie for a third time at some point when he's ready. Matt's doing a good job. Stevie, I thought Stevie was predictable, to be honest. I know Mucky doesn't want to hear that, but I do think he improved. Matt for sure. Simon becoming Charlie Brown, surprised. Yeah, Simon looked like a legitimate player the first season, and he just got sniped and outplayed by Danny and the girls. But this season, his whole edit is like a complete flip. They're making him the Charlie Brown. Australian Survivor TV rankings will drop if there's no King George. I agree. He makes the show. Julian, welcome, saying pleasantly surprised by Haley. I thought Otago would be too big to... Yep, that's another good one. I mean, I'm not surprised by Haley doing really good in the game and being a great player. We all know she's a phenomenal player, but I am surprised that she's still in the game, that she's gotten to this point. It's an absolute shock to me. Frere says, Stevie surprised me with his ability to forgive Shani and come to work with her. Yeah, definitely. And Simon surprised me as well by wanting to work with George, and George for wanting to work with Simon, I guess, to a certain degree. All right, let's look into the next one, and this is going to be number 4 on the rankings, and this is a person, again, that is a very hot favorite, but again, like I said, I'm putting my rankings based on who I think is going to get to the end, and at this point, I think George is going to betray the girls, so I'm going to put Liz as number 4 at this stage, which I know is going to be a shock to people, because a lot of people are pretty high on Liz and Shani, but if Shani falls at this stage in the game, I think Liz will find it difficult. The one thing Liz has in her power, though, and ability, is she is a legitimate athlete. Possibly one of the best we've seen. I mean, she went up against Haley this week and beat Haley at an endurance challenge. Well, we know that Haley is the endurance queen. We know Haley is an exceptional survivor. I don't know what her record is in individual immunities, but I'm pretty sure she won like 3 or 4 in a season. So that was impressive to see. It was kind of like a change of the old guard to the new kid coming around and beating the veteran at the game. So she could very easily, if she gets to like a final 4 scenario, win her way to a final 3 if she gets there. So, but if she doesn't win, I think she's in trouble. Let's see what people are saying here. Poor Stevie waiting for 4 years for his revenge and never getting it. Yeah. He just didn't have the numbers. You know, he was a captain without a ship, like George and them were talking about. Velvet. Lizzie kind of gives me Ziggy vibes, to be honest. I can see that. Ziggy's a blast from the past. I'd love to see Ziggy back. But I love Liz's facial expressions. It is golden. Like that episode where she played the idol and David looked at her and he's like, are you sure you're going to play? Trying to do like a Benji on her. And she just had like no expression on her face. And she's just like, yep. It sent me when I saw that. It was so good. I feel like a lot of people forget that Liz is an Olympian. I haven't. I mean, she's got a tattoo with the Olympian rings on her body. So how do people forget that? Gabe, if Shani leaves before Liz, then she'd have to start winning challenges. I'd like Liz over Shani's first. I'd target Liz over Shani first. I agree. To be honest, they probably should, because you never know when Liz can go on a run. But I think people are going to look at Shani as the 3-time player, great social player. And they're going to be like, if Shani sits at the end, she's most likely beating... I think Shani could probably at this stage beat anyone at the end except for Haley. But then again, I don't know. She took it very personally against Flick. Hopefully Flick's not too burnt by her and because of the conversation she had. Flick does seem like a good sport, so I don't think she'll hold it against her. Zach, thank you for approving. I thought people were going to give me a bit of flack for this one, to be honest. True, she's an Olympic pole vaulter. She's going to smash challenges. I also love her facial expression. She looks unimpressed at trial council. It's hilarious. I agree. It's so good. Do you think George will go next episode? No. I do not think George is going to go anytime soon. Now, whenever they do next on Survivor and they show you, oh, this person is going, it's always a misdirect. They won't spoil it before it happens. And also, George has not been mentioned yet, so he's somewhere in my top 3 power rankings. And I'm power ranking based on who I think is going to get to the end. So I don't think George is going next. Same with your comment on Shani. Liz also takes the game personally, but she's also good at physical challenges. Yep. If Shani were to go out could Liz do a Natalie Anderson and take revenge for Shani and win for the Spice Girls? She could. I think she could, but I haven't seen enough of Liz's social strategic game to give me confidence that she's going to run the game at this stage. She's learning from two of the best. I've been saying it this whole season. Every time I do my top 5 takes, I'm like, I like her to potentially win because she's learning from George and from Shani. You couldn't get to this season, in hindsight, should have been called the True Survivor Island of the Idols, because she's got 2 of her idols, or 2 Survivor idols, I don't know if it's her idols, teaching her the game throughout the season. And I think she's going to be a better player for it. Velvet, Shani gives the line, Liz gives the face, perfect Dio. Yep. Liz says epic resting bitch face, like Shani said. It's so cool. I think, wasn't it the comment that was made by Shani in the beginning? I loved her and I knew she was going to be my BFF from the first moment I saw her resting bitch face or something like that. Still gutted that there was no Simon and Stevie reunion at the merge. I agree. Operation Destiny, it's never going to happen. Jerry is definitely flying under the radar. I agree. That's why he's not been mentioned yet. I don't know if he can. I don't think he can win, but I think he's going to get to the end. Chadu, $2. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Great vids. Keep it up. Mate, honestly, appreciate it so much. Any donations that anyone gives, it's never necessary, but if you ever feel like you want to do it, be free. All of this goes straight to the channel. I promise you. Like anything I'm going to be doing, this is something I want to do long term, and I want to continue to improve the quality of the channel. I want to, as we grow, and I know it's probably annoying for those people that watch my show all the time when I say, can you please subscribe? Can you please like the content? But it does help with the growth of the channel. That's the biggest reason I do it. And it's free. It's a free way of supporting the channel. Anything we do with growing this channel or any money that comes in, I'm putting straight back into the channel. And I'm going to continue to try and make the content better and better as we continue to do this. Thank you so much, Chadud. I appreciate you. Tom, Shani's the social queen, Liz is the physical queen, and George is the strategic queen. Yep, I agree. All right, let's get into the top 3. We're down to the meat and potatoes now of my rankings. And coming in at this point, and I think this is going to be a shock to you. This is not who I think might not win it, but this is basically who I think. Guys, do you think, before I do my top 3 actually, do you think it is a final 3 or a final 2 this season? Because if it is a final 3, it may change my top 3 power rankings. If it is a final 2, it will change it as well. So let me know in the comments, and I'll go on what you guys are telling me. If you think it is a final 2, I'll change my rankings. But if it's a final 3, I'm going to keep it the same as it is currently. Because I'm going to try and see who most likely is going to get to the end. Final 2? Yeah, luckily. I think it's I wonder if it's a final 2 as well. 2 because of the Medivac. Final 2. Final 2 works better. The third person gets no votes. Praying for a final 3. Okay, I'm going to do my power rankings for anybody listening to this. Definitely a final 3. Okay, how many do we have? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people saying final 2, and then we've got 3 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people saying final 3. Now we're up to final 2, 9 jurors. I think so as well, Gemini. I actually think we're just pipping on the final 2. So bear in mind, guys, this power ranking is based on a final 2. And it would look different if it's not a final 2. But based on a final 2, my power ranking for this next person, the third in the power ranking, is going to be the biggest shock. I think it's George. I think, and this breaks my heart to say this, because honestly, I was so much a George fan last time he played. I mean, I did a reaction video on this channel about him coming back to play the game. And George, I love you. If you ever watch this, which you're probably not going to be watching it an hour and 8 minutes into the show, but I love you, man. You're a great player. I'd love to have you on the show one day. Me and George have spoken via DMs a few times. We've never been able to make it happen for him to be on the channel, but it's definitely a bucket list up there with Luke Toki, who I've already interviewed, Dirty Harry, who I've spoken to before, and a bunch of the other great players of Survivor. I'd love to speak to George. But I think George, if it's a final 2, gets sniped just before the end. He might make some of these big moves, but I feel like it could be the Omar or the Jesse of the season at a much bigger scale and get sniped. He might be the person that these other two players might have to get over to win. But in saying that, it kind of makes me confused about the final two a little bit because we haven't seen a great winners edit from the two people ahead of him. So I might think that Matt or Liz is interchangeable. Liz could be either number 4 or number 1 because Jerry's my number 2 and Matt is my number 1 based on this. So it's going to be very difficult. Like, I'm actually finding this very, very difficult. I'd love a final two because Matt and Jerry made mention of a final 2 deal. Exactly. That's the thing that threw me because I'm like, these two are going to take a shot at George at some point. They know they have to, and Matt is the most likely person to win a final 3 in that situation. And if Matt goes up against Jerry, I think Matt wins. Didn't they do a final 3 because last season was blood versus water, which was a format in the US? Final 3, hopefully. If it's a final 3, then George could potentially win. I think if George goes up against Matt and Jerry, that's his best way to get to the end and win. But I think against Shawnee, he loses. And I don't know how he does against Liz either, because I feel like Liz have had some time to bond and spend with the other side. So she might be really good at a final tribal council. Production going to fight for final 3 to happen. they might just change it. I feel like they might just change it and do like a little sneaky Ben Driebergen move on us and, just change the format of the game at the end. I don't actually think production did that, but, it's a final 3. They need to get rid of the jury member twist. Yeah. Now, by the way, I've always said if they do need to get rid of a jury member, I don't like it when they remove a jury member. And when I spoke to Leroux Botha, the producer for Survivor South Africa, I said to him, if you ever needed to do that again in the future, can you just bring in like a nullifier, a jury nullifier, so that the person at least gets to spend the whole Ponderosa there. They get to go to the final tribal council, but then they don't know who's going to be nullified until the end. And then you can just say there's a advantage for whoever to win in a challenge, and they nullify a jury member's vote, but they still get to vote, if that makes sense. I think that's the fairest way to do it. Jacinta, yep, I agree. Scary Spice has improved this game so much this season, but he won't win the challenge. However, he could convince someone to take him to the finale because he lost previously. Yeah, I mean, that's his best move. But I feel, as much as I love George, I think George loves himself more than I love him. And I feel like he would find it very difficult to say to someone, I've got no shot at winning the end game because of my social game. I just don't think he could humble himself. We saw it play out when he went up against Haley. He just couldn't eat humble pie, which is a big flaw for him, which is one of the reasons I kind of think like he's the Russell Hans of Survivor Australia. And I know a lot of people don't like Russell. I mean it in a good way because I think Russell Hans as a player was entertaining and strategically he was very good. I don't necessarily think, recent sort of things that he do on his live and what he says, I'm not always all for that. So I think George and him is probably very different outside of the game, is what I'm trying to say. As a player in the game, I kind of see the similarities. Final 2, bring back Jackie and Rogue. But I feel George's jury management is not great so far. I agree. I love George, but I don't think he's going to in either. Just don't think he's going to win over the jury terms. Yeah, I think, listen, if you're a George fan, it's better to go into this season thinking he's not going to win than thinking he's going to go all the way and win. Because I think the chances is much higher that somebody's going to snipe him before the end. Matt could win. Yeah, I think so. If Matt goes up against Jerry in the end, he could win. But the one scene we have not seen yet for Matt, and if we see that scene, it is a lock. I will be as confident about him winning as I was about Mark winning last season and Haley winning the season before. And that scene is him talking about his family, talking about the kid that's on the way, and him saying, I need the money to start my family, to get that security for us, because I feel like we're not emotionally connected to him yet, if that makes sense. Odette, Heroes' Villain was the final 3. It's nothing to do with the format. I want a final 2, and I'm thinking final 2. Do you believe when George said his goal was not to win the game, what do you think is his goal then? I think his goal is to go and play Survivor US. I think he said that not that long ago as well. He was on Twitter or Instagram saying, my dream is to go and play Survivor US and have Jeff snuff. I don't think he said snuff my George, but have Jeff there. So I feel like George is playing to be an entertainer. I really think for him to be an entertainer is first. He's won some money already. He's got 60 grand, right? So he's got some money out of this thing. And I do think he's playing to be a legend. I think he's playing for legacy. And I do think he's doing a good job at it. Plot twist, it's a Final Four. Doubt it. Not really. They probably won't even number twists because they like Ghost Island. Final three can still happen with 8 jury members. And in case of a tie, it will revert to the rules we saw on Ghost Island. Yep. So that's what Gabe meant as well. Zach says, I think George is a better player than Russell. Yeah, could be. I mean, let's give Russell credit for his first 2 games. He made it to the end twice. George could make it to the end twice. How would George do if he comes back for a 3rd time? Because Russell had one of the biggest targets on his back when he came in for that 3rd season. The most disappointing game of Russell is the one that he doesn't acknowledge, and that's his Australian Survivor game. Because he came back for a 4th time, and he didn't learn anything. He played the exact same game. I feel like George would definitely, I think you're right. I think George would amend his game. But I do think his 3rd game would be so difficult. Like he would come back with the biggest target on his back. Luke Toki, David Gennard, all these legends, they want George to play in a future season that they're on because he would be massive when it comes to being a target. I think George would win a Final 3. I think so against those 2. I think he would. Matt has a shot against Jerry and George. I don't know if Matt beats George, but I think he will beat Jerry. George wants a TV career after this. Yeah, well, I mean, he's a politician. I don't think he's a politician anymore. He did do After Tribal or Talking Tribal. So maybe that's something that he'll go back to. I've not been watching Talking Tribal because I struggle to watch other people's content and then to have my own thoughts. So that sucks because there's some podcasters I really enjoy listening to. And normally I go back after the season to listen to a bit of their takes. So I don't know how good Talking Tribal is doing this season, if Brooke and Khan is doing a good job or not. Gilo, welcome to the live, saying, I think Liz or Shani will win based on edit. I've had Liz and Shani ranked. Shani is 5th and Liz is 4th at this point. George, don't lower your standards and play American version. Marcus, shots fired there, Will. Marcus, I think if George is up against Jerry and Simon and a Final 3, the jury would probably respect him since the jury would consist of returning players. I agree. Hot take, I think Simon and George are the exact same person. Only difference is sexuality, physicality, and raised by different people. So basically nothing's the same. Tom McPherson, imagine how perfect it would be for us Survivor nerds if Matt, the only newbie fan, won. I would love it. And how funny would it be? It would be such a FU to production, basically, for choosing all these recruits to come and play the game. And they should be choosing the Tom McPhersons, the Marcus Evans, the Lachlan's Lands, the Gilos, the Chadus of this world. They should be choosing you guys to go and play the game instead of these celebrity superstars that have never seen the show. All right, let's get into the final 2. I don't even know if I need to do the final 2 because you guys kind of know who I think the final 2 is in my power rankings because we spoke about it. But at this point, the second person in my power rankings is none other, and my power rankings for those that are dropping into this very late is based on who I think is going to get to the end. And I think Jerry is a lock. Like, this guy's a lock to get to the end. He should be a lock to get to the end because I don't think he's winning. I think he is the GOAT, not the greatest of all time, but the GOAT being led to the slaughter here this season. And if Jerry ever listens to this, Jerry, I think you're a great guy, but I don't know gameplay-wise. At least you've got the awareness that you should get rid of George, and you came up with the plan talking to Matt, so I will give you credit for that. But I think the fact that you have written off the whole OG Heroes tribe, and you're so against them, you don't even want to have conversations. It's great for you as a person to let people know who you like and who you don't like, so everybody knows where you're standing with them. But I think in the game of Survivor, you need to suck it up a little bit. And I don't think people are going to respect Jerry at the end, and I don't think they're going to want to vote for him to win the game. Another aspect of George losing due to lack of physical competence. Yep, that Brains versus Brawn final immunity challenge was brutal. Yep. He has improved. I will give him that. He has improved. At least he's competing now. He's not quitting challenges. Zach, Gary Matz, Lachlan's Land, if we had to pick 6 of the best people for US versus AU versus SA seasons, I'd say George, David, Luke, Brooke, Shani, and Nina. George, David, Luke, Brooke, Shawnee, and Nina. I would replace Nina with Haley. I don't think Nina is Haley's level to me. I like her. She's just not if it's top 6. Zach, Jerry is obvious, the third place or one you take to the end. No one sees Jerry as a threat. Yep. Old Spice, I like Jerry for telling it how it is, and I love that he's gunning for the big boys. The old heroes do not like Jerry after he called them out. I agree. Jerry is a sleeper, like he is literally going to be sleeping on the beach when George wakes him up to go to the final tribal. Best comment so far. CDXX, do you think the final tribal would be interesting if it's Matt and Jerry there? I feel like at this point it would be a little bit of a letdown, to be honest, if they got to the end and won. But I've been let down by end games of Survivor before. I think the beauty that we should all appreciate about Survivor is that very rarely does our favorite win the game. That's what makes it so great when my favorite player of all time, Tony Vlachos, won twice. I thought he had no chance to go on to Winners and win that season. But, you don't get these things happening very often. And I can't believe I've seen it happen twice. So I do think it would be a little bit disappointing if they're at the end. Chris Wood, love your videos. I live in a remote Scottish island called Shetland. Keep up the good content. Chris Wood, I appreciate you so much, man. Like, it means a lot. I mentioned it to a few people earlier. You may not have been in the live earlier today, that, you guys have really motivated me to continue to do this. I love talking to you, the fans. I love the interaction that I'm getting from the videos I'm putting out, the lives I'm putting out. And by seeing you guys support the channel by subscribing and liking and just being active, it really motivates me to keep going. So I really appreciate that. Luckland's Land, I just think they'd pick Nina over Haley for the Sandra connection. Good point. I can see that. All right, so lastly, but not least right now, and I think if you asked me a couple of episodes ago, would this person be my number one in the power rankings, I would have been shocked. But I'm very happy to have a fan, to have one of us ranked as number one on the power rankings. So Matt, at the moment, for me, is in the optimal position in this game. George wants to keep him in the game. He wants to work with Matt. He looks at him as a loyal person in the game. I think George has placed himself strategically in the middle of two alliances. He knows that Matt and Jerry are tight. He knows that Liz and Shawnee is tight, and he can choose where to go. And I think George is going to look at Matt and Jerry and say, that is the easier option. That is the easier route to the end for me. That is the easier route to win at the end. Because if he does get to sit next to Shawnee, he is going to get murdered in the final tribal council. He's not going to get the votes, and he's going to have PTSD from when he lost to another blonde girl, and he's not going to make that mistake twice. He's too much of a pragmatic guy. He's too logical, and he is going to think this thing through. And due to that, I could see Matt slipping by, getting to the end and winning this show. So I do think he's my number one. I can see a scenario where him and Liz are interchangeable as well. But things need to turn out differently from how I'm seeing it at the moment. But any of the top 5 at this stage are legitimate potential winners in this game. You've got Matt. In fact, any of 4 to 5. You've got Matt. You've got George. You've got Shawnee and Liz. Those are the people that I think are the most likely to win the show. I think Jerry is not going to win. I think he will get to the end, but won't have a chance. That is my top takes and power rankings here for the season as we go into the final 10 stage of the game. And maybe we'll do another one just prior to the end, like final 6, or we'll review this in the end and see how wrong I was about everything. Luckland's Land saying, yeah, boy. Gabe saying, Matt is that rare Survivor fan that actually gets cast on Australian. You know what Matt reminds me of, in that sense, when you mentioned this, he's a rare Survivor fan that gets cast on the show. He reminds me of Jericho, because we forget that Jericho was a massive fan of Australian Survivor before he played. And I remember when his brother, I think it was his brother, came to on the family visit, and he was reunited with him. They both freaked out about the fact that they were on Survivor. And obviously, Jericho's got the Filipino background. I've got some Filipino friends myself as well. They're all really into Survivor over in the Philippines, because the show was filmed there a few years ago. There was filmed there more than once. And I find that there's a lot of Filipino fans that watch even this channel when I look at the statistics of where people watch this. So, but yeah, it was great to see Matt get this far. And he reminds me of Jericho in some ways. CDXX says Matt's villain phase last episode was fun to watch. Him taking Nina's name and calling it Vigilante, that was so petty, but I still loved it. Jacinta, Matt should take Simon and Jerry to the finale. He could beat both. I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. Harukawa says off topic, but I think it'd be funny to have a season like the US Russell versus Boston Rob with George versus Simon, or maybe even Stevie versus Shawnee. I think George versus Simon would be unfair to the team that has Simon. I would love to see it, but I mean, listen, Simon's actually what probably would happen in that season is that would be the season that Simon wins, because everybody would be like, oh, Simon, you're so lovable. We just wanted to play the game with you. And, in your season when everything was going wrong, we were all, hoping you would do really well. And then George should have this massive target on his back where people are just like, we're not going to work with him. They vote him out early. And then Simon goes on and does a Boston Rob and wins the show. I think that's how it would play out. Luckland saying, yeah, he has Jericho vibes, definitely. Even the same kind of build, eh? Gabe, Matt to assure a win needs to take Jerry and Simon, not risk taking George to the final three. Oh, CDX, Filipino. There you go. Listen, I know you guys love Survivor. Luckland's Land, that was too funny. All right, well, there we have it. That is the total power ranking here. It went a lot longer than what I thought it would, but it's because you guys have been so active in the chat, and I wanted to make sure that I got to all of your comments as well. I appreciate everybody for being here as I did this one. It was a bit of a trial run of doing a live on my own. If you like this type of content and you like this one-on-one lives like this, maybe we'll do some more topics in the future as well, because I really enjoyed it. Because when I have other people on the show like Maki and Kahuna, we always bring the comments on and we talk about it. But a lot of the times you're also giving a lot of your attention to the people you're talking to in those podcasts. So you can't read every single comment. And I think I read every single comment tonight. So we did a pretty good job here. Channel Mud, welcome to the stream. And Channel Mud, guys, specifically Mud Survivor, I think they're the same. And Channel Mud, you let me know. Mud Survivor has just reached 1,000 subscribers. So go check it out. Welcome to the 1,000 subscribers club. Mud shares clips of Australian Survivor and I think clips of Survivor 44 as well. Will saying great show. Fat Dad Slim with the Filipino flags. Let's go. Jacinta saying it's been fun. Well, thanks for coming. It's been really good to have you. Set a schedule, bro. Yeah, I might have to. I might have to start doing this a little bit more. Thank you for the stream. Great stream, Chris. Glad I was able to tune in from the start to finish. I've really loved having you. My favorite thing about you is you put some comments on screen and you actually talk to us. Well, I love talking to the fans. Like, I don't get why more people don't do it. Like, a lot of the times you guys keep me honest as well. Like, I'll miss things. I'll forget things. Having all of you here helps me remember some of the stuff that happened. Thanks for the stream. Thank you for being here. Yes, we are the same. Yeah. So go check out Channel Mud, guys. Mukitsi, following the greatest survivor of all time, all the way from Botswana, Africa. Welcome from Africa. If you don't know this, I'm originally from South Africa. So love having some African fans here. Look out. Our app, listen, no one can touch our app. They are an institution that has been there for a very long time. High praise, but those guys are next level. Tom McPherson, thanks, Chris. Thank you. Good fun. See you. Like a Twitch streamer. Yeah, I know. This is very different, right? But for now, guys, if you like this content, and for those that are dropping in quite late, go back and have a look at it. I think it was a great live show. We spoke about a lot of different things here. We'll be back tomorrow night to do a recap and review of the actual episodes, and we'll have both Kahuna and Maki back as well. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Consider hitting a like on this video, commenting on it below if you're seeing this after the live. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. And for now, thank you so much, everyone. I'll catch you guys tomorrow night. Bye.